Okay, let me click the call. Resume call. I just cut myself off of my...
Yeah, I was like, hopefully I didn't shut the other show down.
No, it's still there. It says it's on... I'm clicking. It says resume call, and it won't let me in.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Do you need to hang up with me?
Am I back?
Yeah, we're back.
Yeah, sorry, Alan and them called, and I said invite to the group call, and then it took me to their call and not to...
So that's why it put me on hold. Okay.
Yeah, put everybody on hold. So, Alan, are you here now?
I am. Apparently, I was live.
Yeah,
Tyson's sitting there texting me saying that I was live, and by the way, you're on. I was like, oh wait, okay.
Yeah, you took over my call. What are you doing?
I'm so sorry.
We've been hijacked. We've officially been hijacked.
Those other guys, yeah, really. I love the header on your Skype. That's totally awesome. I want one like that.
That's cute.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay.
We have a good graphic artist too.
Have we still got Robin and company?
Yep. You got me.
That little arrangement there of technical difficulties was Alan Jones from the Mead Makers calling in. So they've been on the show several times. They come in and make trouble, and we have a lot of fun.
Hey guys.
Hi.
Thanks for being on the show tonight. I did have one question before you guys do dip off. So we're talking about trying to drum up support for a root beer mead challenge. I'm really interested in your root beer mead. Since you talked about it, are you willing to give a little bit more detail about ingredients, just to give everybody a heads up on what you can make?
There's nothing I'm doing that others couldn't figure out. All I did was kind of see what happens here. I got 2 2-ounce bottles of Watkins extract, and I put them in our 20% traditional mix, and I just used wildflower honey, and in a 5-gallon batch. That's what I typically use for tests. And I just put all 4 ounces in there and said, all right, let's see what happens. And what actually happened is, it fermented after a couple of weeks. It's kind of harsh. And the root beer flavor, the root beer smell was really strong. But it was kind of so-so. People were ambivalent about it. Some liked it, some didn't so much. What happened was I just kind of set it aside. And that was probably 3 months ago at least. And just recently we trotted out a bottle of it to throw in the tasting. When people are doing tastings, we'll ask them, you feel like being adventurous? And we'll, since we're so small, we'll let them taste some of our tests. So we've been having people taste the root beer, and it's been really popular. So what has happened is I didn't want it to be a root beer. I mean, like Dad's root beer or not your dad's root beer. I didn't want it to be that. I wanted it to be mead with that root beery feel, and that's what happened. And it turns out that aging was the key. Let it sit for a while, let the mead age, and let that root beer come through, but let it be more subtle, and that seems to be what people are really enjoying.
So you've also added some vanilla bean to it now.
Ah, yes. But that's
okay, that makes sense, yeah.
So,
cool.
So right now that seems to be the ticket. And like I mentioned earlier, we're going to collaborate with a local craft soda maker and use their syrup. And again, I got to work on the recipe, but I want it to be subtle. I want it to be something that really makes you feel and think of root beer, and you kind of taste the root beer, but it's not an in-your-face thing.
Okay, yeah, no, that sounds great. Cool. Well, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Happy to share.
All right, Vicky, are you going to be calling?
Throw away.
Vicky, are you going to be calling Manny and Ryan?
Yeah, I am. We're going to get him in here in a minute. I was just texting Manny because I hadn't heard back from him. So, sorry, I had my microphone off. Yeah.
It got quiet in here for a minute.
Yeah, less background noise there. Well, and Alan was asking questions and stuff, So, yeah. So, yeah, I was just texting Manny, and I already heard from Ryan, so we're going to get him in here in just a second. Yeah, Alan, I got to sit down with you guys and talk techie back-end stuff.
Okay.
Because there's some stuff I'm working on, and I need input from you guys and some feedback, and I'm tired of working in a vacuum here and figuring out,
Yeah, sounds good.
Screwing this up, and I know there's ways I can make this better, but I just haven't figured out what it is yet, and I'm trying.
There's a reason we don't do live.
Yeah, well, I know.
One of those whole things. It's a whole other ball game once you go live instead of recorded. So
yeah, it is, and I've figured out a lot of it, but there's just some interesting tidbits I think that actually you guys have already figured out for even recorded that like that will work. So I'm gonna bring in Ryan here and make sure it's Ryan I'm calling so he doesn't.
Hello.
Hey, Ryan.
Hi.
Hey, you are in, so I'm going to call, say, hey, we've got Robin and his family from Viking Alchemist on. We've also got Alan Jones from the Mead Makers, and, of course, me and AJ. So I'm going to call Manny now.
Mm-hmm.
And get him in, and then we'll have a party.
All right.
Yeah.
Or we'll try to actually, talk about mead making instead of just what's going on in our lives.
Yeah. We did get a little distracted last time, didn't we?
Wouldn't it be great when we can finally do virtual mead?
Yeah, wouldn't it be? We like doing those virtual pet raisings like they were doing in the 90s, or the kids in there. My daughter had one of those electronic pet
Tamagotchi things or whatever.
Yeah, Tamagotchi things, yeah.
I prefer the real thing. The cuddles are better.
Oh, yeah. Is that the new ones that they're doing?
No, I mean real, honest to goodness
pets. Oh, you mean
pets.
like actual animals. All right. We are calling now. Hang on.
I'm here.
There you are. Okay, cool. Now
Yes.
the entire gang together. So everybody meet Manny. Manny, we've got Robin and his family from Viking Alchemist. We've got Alan Jones from the Mead Maker podcast, and then of course me and AJ. So,
and Ryan.
And Ryan's here too. Part of the team. So.
All right.
Yeah, so
Yep.
we're all here together. So, Robin, all y'all are welcome to stick around if you like, or pop off if you want to get back to your actual real lives and everything. And but we'd love to have you if you want to stay. So it's entirely up to you.
What are you talking about next?
Well, this is the part where I hand the show over to AJ and kick back and watch the levels and let them So AJ.
All right, well, we're going to be continuing on with the Making Good Mead, back to basics. And what we're going to talk about this week is how to get into good habits. So we're going to discuss things like sanitation, note-taking, ingredients, yeast, that type of thing. So I thought, sanitation's probably one of the more important things to get right, so I figured we should start there.
Well, so we're talking about like the really, I'm the comedy relief in this part. The really boring stuff that you got to do, because what you really want to do is get out there and make that 79 spice, pumpkin cherry durian fruit mead that you heard about on some website that was on a historical thing like 20 years ago.
Right.
But we during our tours, sometimes I'll tell people that. Yeah, we're a meadery, but we're really in the cleaning and sanitizing business, and we actually make mead now and then.
Yeah, that is kind of how it feels, isn't it?
We're not clearing out the floor drains, we're making mead.
Yeah, but I always used to say the same thing with beer. It's you spend 15 minutes making beer and 5 hours cleaning. That's what it's all about. Making sure everything's clean, and then after it's clean, sanitize, because they're not the same thing.
Very true. Yeah. Well, and with beer, I mean, you got so little wiggle room with beer. I mean, you can breathe on it heavily, and it'll get an infection and die.
Right.
Or worse, not die.
That's why it
Or
was so
not die,
important.
yeah. turn into the thing that ate New York, kind of,
Right.
Well,
so how do you want to get started?
Well, I was going to start with, the way I do it, and then let everybody else chime in with how they do it. What I do is I have a mason jar full of sulfite solution, and I've got, and that I keep around until I can't smell it anymore, and then I change it for a new batch. I also have some in a spray bottle, and that makes, things that don't fit in the mason jar a whole lot easier to get. But for that's for sanitizing it, and for cleaning, I use the pink chlorine cleanser. And one of the things I will say about that is, if you're doing a carboy with it, make sure you've got a really good grip on it. It makes things slippery.
Yeah. And stay away from bleach, because you'll never get it out.
Well, that's not so bad on glass, but by the time you've rinsed it, you've reintroduced
Right.
all the stuff back in.
Yeah.
So typically what I do is I make sure everything's thoroughly cleaned, and that involves, scrubbing it out and, whenever appropriate. There are some things you probably don't want to use a scrub brush on if they're like a soft plastic. You don't want to make scratches in anything, because that's where bacteria can hide. So you want to make sure that everything's clean, and then you want to make sure everything gets something like 30 seconds to 2 minutes of contact time with the sanitizer. And usually what I do for the big buckets is I swish it out, and I rinse out the cleanser, and I don't tend to rinse when I use the sanitizer, because half the time I'm using a Campton tablet anyway, and it's pretty much the same stuff for me. So, and I've discovered I don't have any problem at all with sulfites, because when I was using mouth suction to get my siphon started, I would fill the tube with the sanitizing solution, and I got a mouthful of that once, and it didn't bother me. So I know I particularly have no problems with sulfites.
Other than it tasting really terrible. Yeah.
Well, that, and actually, if I breathe over it when I've just sprayed it, I'll start wheezing, and I have to leave the room. So it bugs my lungs, but I can ingest the stuff otherwise just fine. But again, I mean, that's the balancing act I have fun with is, you got to have somewhere you can put all the stuff once you've sanitized it. Otherwise, if you put it down on your kitchen counter, you've just contaminated it again.
Yeah.
So for me, the fun thing, I don't have enough kitchen counter to do that, and plus I do all my mead making in the basement now anyway. And I ran out of room, so I took the counter down. So I don't actually have a work surface unless I clean the desk. But anyway, I've outgrown my mead. I've really, really outgrown my mead area again. But what I do is, if I'm doing a big batch of stuff, I will sanitize a bucket, and everything that's sanitized goes in the bucket.
Okay.
And the
That's
jars
exactly
that
what
I
I
use. Yeah, the jars I use are big enough I can stick my hands in too. So when I go to touch something, I sanitize my hands while I'm at it. And if it doesn't fit in the mason jar, or I can't pour stuff from the mason jar over it, sometimes I would have 2 mason jars and pour stuff. Put the long tubes in one mason jar and pour it from one mason jar over to the other mason jar, just to get all the surfaces covered. But
Right.
Spraying it works a lot better. So how do you guys do yours?
Well, I start with, if it's plastic, I use baking soda to wash everything down, just because that's what I was taught a long time ago. I'm sure there's something better now, but baking soda tends to get everything clean and doesn't scratch the plastic insides of the buckets. Then after that's clean, I use either the sulfate solution, but more recently I've been using Star San. A little bit of that stuff goes a long way. So I'll wash everything out with my baking soda paste, rinse it really well, and usually if it's a bucket, I'll spray it down with the same thing as you, with a little Star San solution. And that's that first bucket, once it's clean and sanitized, that's the bucket that everything else goes into. And then with the